Why is D&D's latest adventure, Vecna, Eve of Ruin, getting so negatively reviewed, and how can Wizards of the Coast fix this for future adventures? Let's talk about that. So I don't think it's any secret looking around, a lot of people are not having too many positive things to say. We're seeing awesome titles like Vecna and Vecna, Eve of Ruining Adventures and da-da-da. Obviously just fantastic titles there. But ultimately, what is going on with this adventure? Why is it wrong? This isn't going to be any major spoilers, so you can feel free to stick around if you want to play in this adventure for yourself. We're going to immediately dive into several of the key reasons why this adventure is not doing so hot. Number one being level. So this is a high level adventure. This is a tier 3 and tier 4 adventure. You're starting off strong and you only get stronger and eventually get to the end game, the pinnacle of all awesomeness and all of 5e, that 20th level. Here's the problem with that though. From everything I have ever seen about player engagement, player enjoyment, player wants and desires in regards of what tier they want to play at, by all metrics that I have seen, maybe you can find some yourself, but all metrics I've seen indicate that players want to play at tier 2, or at least they enjoy tier 2 the most. Tier 1, a lot of people feel like, oh, I don't have enough features, oh, I only get to swing once my sword, I only get to cast a pitiful little AoE that doesn't do much. And then conversely, in tier 3 and tier 4, you get a ton of features. You've got so many things going on. Your character sheet is stacked. There is oftentimes people who don't even remember what's on their character sheet because there's so much going on. Tier 2 hits that sweet spot. You've got enough going on. You typically know enough about your character, and you know what the heck to do, and you feel just powerful enough that you can influence the world around you. Designing adventures for tier 3 and tier 4 is atrocious. You have to throw out so many encounters to challenge the players, so many high-level monsters and wacky traps and a whole bunch of circumstances to challenge tier 3 and tier 4 characters that it seems like it can be a bit too overwhelming to write for, especially for a published adventure. When you're running for your own players, you can obviously challenge them individually, and you know exactly how to challenge your players. But when you're writing for the general basis, the whole width of the world, essentially, there's no real way to write challenges that are equal to everybody. It's just not possible. Now, is that to say that it's impossible to write high-level adventures from a company? No, absolutely not. There are already really decent written adventures, not from Wizards of the Coast, but from other people. So it's possible. You just have to write for it. You have to know how to write it. And unfortunately, I don't think Wizards of the Coast knows how to write for high-level adventures with the way that they're going on about how to write adventures. But that'll be another point later on. Number 2, player agency. Guess what, players? You've got no agency here. You're going to meet this person and they're going to say, hey, player, we need you to go to this exact one location. You're going to go there. And when you go there, you have to do this. And when you do this, you have to get this item. And when you get this item, then you have to come back to here. And there is absolutely no movement. You are on a roller coaster. This is a roller coaster style of adventure. There is no sandbox to be had. There's not even a railroad. A railroad implies that there's at least a few junctions you can stop by or maybe, hit the lever and go left or right. No, this is a roller coaster. You are going straight the whole time. And that's fine for some people. Some players enjoy a roller coaster style of adventure where you have no choice or say in the matter. You just go where the NPCs tell you to go, because then you can turn your brain off. You don't have to think as much. You don't have to worry about making the wrong decision. Some people like that creature comfort. However, not everyone does. And that has been a problem with a bunch of the recent 5e adventure, is that there is no player agency. You are going forward. You are following along with what the NPCs tell you to do, and you're going to do it, and that's the end of story. There's no deviation. Now, natively, is that wrong to write adventures for roller coasters? Once again, absolutely not. Some players enjoy that. And 2, that allows for creative DMs that are willing to shake up the book to add their own spin to it. Maybe you transform that roller coaster style adventure into a sandbox by adding a few things along the margins, but that once again requires work. And the reason why a lot of people buy adventure modules is because they don't want to have to work as much. Because instead of having to come up with a whole bunch of things on your own, instead of having to spend dozens and dozens of hours on the sides making maps and making monsters and doing all these various things, you instead just pick up this book and run it as is. A lot of people want that comfort. It's very simple. And unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast is pumping out all these roller coaster style adventures, and once again, some people appreciate it, others don't. All I've got to say on the matter is 5E's most popular module to date is Curse of Strahd. Curse of Strahd is not a roller coaster style adventure. People love Curse of Strahd to death. It is the most talked about, the most well-renowned. It's got the highest views. It's got everything. Everyone loves Curse of Strahd. And there was a reason for that. It did not have this roller coaster style adventure where you showed up to town A and then villager A says, hey, go to area B, you know. It wasn't like that. You just show up and things fall where they may. My personal favorite of the 5e modules is Tomb of Annihilation. Very much in that same regard. Tomb of Annihilation is a sandbox, and I love it. And I know a lot of people love it as well. And I don't see anyone really going super hardcore talking about all the more recent adventures that are all roller coasters. I know for a fact people are enjoying some of them. I know that. I've ran some of these adventures for people and they love it. And I've talked to other DMs and saying that their players loved these roller coaster style adventures. But my problem is that I'm not seeing that, right? I'm hearing it, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing anyone go on about how, you know, the Spelljammer adventure was awesome, about how the Dragonlance adventure was awesome, about how the, you know, all these newest adventures in the past, you know, 3, 4, 5 years. I'm not seeing anyone gushing about these adventure modules, not like the previous ones, not like Curse of Strahd, not like Tomb of Annihilation. I'm not seeing that fervor, and that is a big problem. Now, number 3 on the list of why this adventure is not doing so hot is, unfortunately, this has a Marvel's problem, a Marvel Cinematic Universe problem. What do I mean by that? Well, here's the big old, you know, the tagline of this whole video is that this adventure is for nerds. And I mean that as affectionately and as backhandedly as possible. So imagine this. You grew up and you're watching all these Marvel Cinematic movies. You see the Iron Mans, you see the Thors, you see the whatevers. And then you eventually watch Avengers Endgame. And it's awesome. You see this culmination of all these years of play, all these dozens of movies. You see this all come together and it works so well. It's so awesome. Here's the problem with that. If you didn't watch all those movies, which as over the course of time, more and more people are going to not have seen those movies, then that movie's going to suck. That's the problem with this adventure module. This adventure module is for big ol' nerds who know the lore, who have played all the adventures, who know everything that there is to know about everything about Dungeons and Dragons. This adventure module takes place in a whole bunch of places that you would know about if you are a big old nerd about D&D, you've played the adventure modules, you've read the lore, you know the books, you've done whatever. You meet these NPCs, and every single NPC you meet along the way is a named big old character. You meet the fan favorites, the classics, the OGs. You meet all these people. You go to these places, and, you know, not big spoiler alert, but you do in fact interact in some shape or form with Curse of Strahd. And that right there tells me that they knew that there are so many diehard nerds of Curse of Strahd that they were willing to throw that into this adventure. And I get it. If you have played every single 5e adventure module, if you know the lore, if you know everything about everything that there is to know about Dungeons and Dragons, then this adventure is just nostalgia flavor galore. Every single corner you turn around, you are interacting with something, and you get to point and say, "Oh, she's from that thing," and "Oh, we've been there before," and that's cool. But once again, that's only cool if you're a nerd. What is the likelihood of someone now having played through all of the adventure modules, what is the likelihood of someone knowing all of the lore? What is the likelihood of someone being so invested in Dungeons and Dragons that they know everything that there is to know about everything about it? It's incredibly small, and it's only ever going to get smaller. It's not going to get bigger. And that's the problem with this. I feel like if you run this for someone who is not invested in the lore, who hasn't played all the adventure modules, then it's just going to be, watching Adventures Endgame and being like, oh, who's that? Oh, I'm supposed to care? Oh, okay, this is a person. Oh, okay. Oh, we're going to this place? Sure. Like, there's no investment. There's no tie-in. And I get that this adventure is going to be great for a very niche amount of people. It's going to be great, but it's not going to be great for everyone else. And that right there is a huge, huge problem. So what does Wizards of the Coast do about that for future adventures? Quite simple. You just make an adventure automatically assuming that this is baby's first adventure, right? You make adventures knowing that the majority of the time, people aren't invested in the universe. People don't know what's going on. And I suspect that is going to happen for the first little bit when it comes to the new adventures for D&D, not 5.5 next edition, because it's set in a area that not everyone knows about, Greyhawk. So when the new edition comes out, then a lot of people who don't know what Greyhawk is and what it's all about, there's going to be adventures all about this air quote new setting to these new people, and that's going to be fine. But I fear that down the line, maybe they'll try and do something like this again, but maybe they won't. Maybe they'll learn their lesson from all the bad press from this and decide, hey, you know what? Let's not make an adventure where you have to be a diehard nerd to enjoy it. So with the combination of high-level play from Wizards of the Coast, it hasn't been great. From the combination of no player agency at all whatsoever, and of course the nostalgia factor of you need to know to enjoy this adventure. There's just a whole bunch of things that just don't fit well with this adventure. It's unfortunate. I think that this should have been the big shebang, right? Because this is essentially foretelling the end of traditional 5e, because we are now going to be moving on to D&D not .5 edition, right? And that's just not a great send-off. There is going to be an anthology adventure, but that's an anthology adventure of old adventures, so it's not really much of a actual campaign written up. They're just changing up some stat blocks here and there from previous editions. It's unfortunate that this is the send-off, but it's the send-off that we get. What's going to be happening in the future? Are they going to learn from their mistakes? Are they going to maybe try and move in a new direction? That's unfortunately been the problem with 5th edition's module lineup, is every single adventure they write, they then move on to try and create a different sort of writing mechanism. They try and create new ideas on how to write adventure modules. And sometimes they strike gold, and then sometimes they strike nothing. And it's unfortunate because we know over the course of time, like a lot of people regard certain adventures as really good and certain adventures as not really good. So hopefully they can finally look past all this and say, oh, hey, these adventures do good. Maybe we'll start writing in this kind of mechanism and schemes versus, oh, these adventures are bad. Ooh, let's not deal with those, shall we? So in that regard, I want to see sandbox. I want to see player agency. And I also, of course, want to not have to deal with all these, named NPCs that everyone should know and love and require a whole bunch of back lore to understand and appreciate. Simple as that. But if you've ran this adventure, if you have started playing this adventure, if you have interacted with this adventure module at all, go ahead and tell me about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone else is enjoying this and the only people that don't like it are the content creators. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But tell me all about that down below because I would love to hear it. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you to my wonderful patrons. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. Honestly, one of the big moves I really want to see Wizards of the Coast make is instead of creating these 200, 300 page super adventure modules. I'd rather have them just create 20 to 60 page adventure modules, because I feel like it'll be just a lot simpler to grab and place into the world versus having to create this big old multi-month, multi-year campaign.